Virginia Congressman Morgan Griffith is here with us today on First at 4 to discuss a variety of different topics. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and making the trip to Johnson City.
Great to be with you.
Yes, well, we enjoy having you here in the studio, but we've got a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and get right to it. Well, we're seeing President Donald Trump scale back on his threats to Iran after he made some pretty bold statements over the weekend, and then 2 hours before that deadline, he almost completely went back on what he said. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think that was a part of negotiating with the Iranians. They have to understand he's serious about going even further. A lot of times people think America's going to back off. He wanted to make it clear we're not. And I think what happened was the Iranians said, okay, we'll negotiate. Now, whether they're meaning it, whether they're serious about it, time will tell, but that's what the 2 weeks is for.
Well, speaking of that, we are currently in a ceasefire with both sides disagreeing. How do you see these negotiations and the situation evolving?
I think it's going to be difficult. The Iranian leadership for decades has played a game of duplicity and not telling the truth and not really negotiating. We'll see. I hope it's different this time because of the military threat that Trump has presented and the fact that our military is clearly superior to theirs, but we'll see.
Yes, well, the U.S. has already claimed a military victory. How so, and what are your thoughts on that?
Well, we clearly have damaged their military infrastructure. Their Navy is in disarray, completely destroyed or mostly destroyed. Their Air Force is down and out. And so they have been severely neutralized in many ways. They still have the enriched uranium, and they still have the ability to launch missiles from various sites at the Straits of Hormuz. And so that means they still have some cards to play, but they don't have a lot.
Yes, well, speaking of enriched uranium, the U.S. is asking Iran to hand it over right now. Do you think that's actually going to happen?
I'm somewhat doubtful. I think we may be back where we were in 2 weeks, but I'm hopeful because that is the key issue. The enriched uranium means they can get a nuclear weapon quickly. They already have the missile technology to reach Crete. They bombed Crete during this conflict. Crete is a Mediterranean island, which is a part of the European Union that they bombed. So I think the Europeans ought to be more invested than they are. But the truth of the matter is, I don't know whether I trust the Iranians to say that they will actually negotiate that. But that's the key for us. Get the enriched uranium, and then we don't have as much worry in the world, in the Middle East, or in Europe of Iran having a nuclear weapon that they can use against our allies.
And as you mentioned, these next 2 weeks are pretty critical. What are you expecting to happen over these next 2 weeks when it comes to these negotiations?
We'll have to wait and see. I think the Americans need to continue to press the advantage, and I think Donald Trump will do that. And we need to insist that we get the enriched uranium. We can do a lot of things to help them rebuild this or rebuild that if we can get rid of the enriched uranium and make sure that they don't get a nuclear weapon.
Well, let's switch gears now because there's obviously some other things happening here in the district as well. People in Virginia are heading to the polls right now for a special election for redistricting Virginia. What do you hope comes out of this?
It's a no vote. It's the only thing that works for Virginia as a whole. And I tell people all the time, just look at the maps. You don't have to listen to me. You don't have to listen to other talking heads.
You did bring show and tell for us today.
So this is the map that was approved by the Supreme Court that was charged with doing a nonpartisan or bipartisan process. You can see what those districts look like. They're as contiguous as they can be. They are nice looking maps. Then you go over here and you look at what the politicians drew in the back room this year in Richmond. And oh my goodness, you've got the 7th district goes all the way to the Chesapeake Bay and down to Augusta County, and it touches the 9th district. So in 2 districts you go from the Chesapeake Bay to the Cumberland Gap further west in Detroit, Michigan. It's absolutely ridiculous. These maps are horrible, and they do not work for good government or good representation by any of the congressmen or women in Virginia.
Well, we know that this special election is happening right now, and if this goes through, what does continued legal action look like? As I understand, you've already kind of started pursuing that.
Yep, I'm involved in a number of lawsuits. We have hearings coming up later in April. If this doesn't fail, and I hope it fails, if it doesn't fail, there will be legal actions, partly on the compactness. Obviously, you can look at the politician drawing maps. They're not compact. And we have other arguments about the process, and the question on the ballot is so misleading. People get in there and they think, well, this says I want to be fair. Everybody wants to be fair. And the Constitution of Virginia says you're supposed to draw a question that is bland and just states the facts. This one does not do that. It argues the politician in Richmond position, and I think the court's going to throw it out, but I hope that we vote no and keep the Supreme Court from having to worry with it.
Well, Congressman Griffith, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Quickly, if one of your constituents wants to reach out to you, what is the best way to contact you?
They can contact our office, and you can catch us on the website. I can pull that out of my back pocket here because I keep it on my card. It is morgangriffith.house.gov.
All right. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us here this afternoon on First at 4. We appreciate you for stopping by.
Glad to be with you.